everybody who now is watching us. His podcast, Happy at Work. My name is Tatiana Cohen, and here today we are meeting the one of a brilliant and exciting person, which I ever met. I hope they could one time meet alive as Dr. Frank Gonzalez. Hi, Frank.
Hello, my friend. Exciting. Who are you? I was like, who are you
Excellently,
calling?
because your energy is going through the screen now to me, the problem.
I was like, somebody else joining us? That's you're not talking about me. Hello,
Yeah,
my friend. Hello, everyone.
yeah, and I also think that everybody today will feel your energy because for me, you are one of the person which I could feel on a long distance. Frank, my last questions for you. Could you share your professional background experience with my audience? I hope that after that, before you are not only an energetic person, but also a very interesting person in professional life, all of my audience will follow you on LinkedIn at least. So please, could you share your professional background and experience?
Oh, absolutely, my friend. And I think yes, I feel the energy as well, or at least let's try to feel that energy increase. Before I think introducing myself professionally, I think it's always good to go beneath the surface because we are talking about humanity, right? And humanity is beneath the surface beyond name and job title. I know that excites people, and I'll get to that. But I'm Dr. Frank Gonzalez. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm actually located in the state of Texas, central in the United States, just outside of San Antonio, northwest. I'm a male ambivert, meaning that I'm a bit extroverted, but I also like my quiet time. I'm kind of this balance in between, depending on the time or scope. I'm feeling a little bit extroverted right now, though. I have dark brown skin. I identify as Hispanic, Latino, specifically Mexican American. I'm a father. I'm a husband. Been a father now. My son will be turning 7 this month, so I'm really excited and been married now 14 years. And so that's a little bit about me, but professionally, I am a people and culture leader with 2 decades of experiences around talent development, organizational development, training, inclusive efforts, etc., and just a number of different industries. But today it's Frankie G, and we're talking about humanity. So that's a little bit about me, my friend, and love to get into this conversation around the leadership role and humanizing the workplace, because without that, where is the happiness? And I'm just excited. And thank you so much, my friend, for inviting me.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, so we decided to discuss the humanity, how to bring it in our places and for leadership. And my first question is for you. How to become a real leadership with a people-centric approach? How could we do it for our professional life and how it connected with our private life? Could you share your ideas?
Gosh, they are connected, absolutely. And I think there's two ways that I would love to kind of synthesize through kind of a framework and then allow you and our listeners and viewers to really think about it for themselves and see how that plays. I think the from the professional side, there's that organizational development kind of framework or formula, which is that your personality, so the leader personality, plus the values of the company, plus the behaviors that are allowed and encouraged is really what the culture is. And that can be measured, right? And the reason around this personality is because you project what you will get and vice versa. You will get what you project. And this is relationships, right? It's about that relationship. Putting the numbers aside for a moment, that is absolutely what drives business, but humanity piece of it, right? So I think that's a nice framework. Again, your personality as a positional leader, and we're all leaders, but your personality plus the values of a company, plus the behaviors that are allowed or encouraged, not just the behaviors that or value system that's written, but what's encouraged, what's modeled is really what drives the culture or the humanity in your organization. From a personal side of it, similar, but I'm going to use a little bit different words. your lived experiences. We all have events and experiences in our lives that shape us. I mentioned a little bit about myself personally, where I am, who I am, what I do, right? And that shapes a bit of my outlook and it changes and evolves. But we all have lived experiences. We also all have frictions or events or obstacles. So lived experiences plus or minus the friction and obstacles in your life, plus the exposure that you get and connections with others is really what equals opportunity. And opportunity is not always about title or money, that humanity piece, the flexibility within a framework, right? The autonomy, the sense of connection, this sense of contributing, right, to a greater cause. Your purpose is what we can call it, right? And so I think those two frameworks, are definitely connected, intertwined, and it's something that can evolve. So it's not something that you have to write down and say, okay, this is how I'm going to stick with, and it's going to stay like this forever. It can change. Tatiana, you and I both know, and our viewers know that events in our lives will absolutely shape, for better or worse, our outlook on life. So, but those are two good frameworks, I think, on how they connect and how you maybe can have balance. And that's just me. I'd love to hear your thoughts or follow up on that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything what we do in our life interconnected. What we do in the professional life will influence our private life and vice versa. And I have one more question for you. When we talk about people-centered approach, we also start to think about our mental models, which we use as the leaders. What is important for us, the way we are thinking, the way we work with people. And sometimes we need to change ourselves because in the previous, I think in the business, a lot of people firstly start to focus mostly on results, on figures, on doing business, nothing personal. Now we are in the era when we need to change this approach to see the personality in our employees. As we discussed 2 days ago with one of my guests, what she started to work as a human resource manager, but when they changed to a people manager, this is not just a change of the name, it's a change of the approach. And my question for you, if a leader want to change behavior, want to change mindset, want to really become more people-centric in understanding for it could bring them more results now. What steps he or she should do?
There's a lot to be said about that, and I think it'll be different for everyone. But let me put a theme, a framework, an example to this. Okay, so many people claim to be human centric or people centric, and so do organizations, and that is an aspirational goal. And I'm not saying that some organizations and people are not like that. Most, I truly believe in humanity. So let me start there. But starting as treating people as humans, that's what's important. I'm going to say that again: treating people as humans. And a nice framework model is head, HEAD, get in the right head, the mindset, because mindset will influence what you say and what you do, how you act, who you are, the type of person that you really aspire to be, right? And this is where we have a difference between intention and then impact. But this head framework around that, so follow me for just a moment, is listening or hearing stories is the H. Hear the stories of others with full empathy as much as you can. It is not the minute that you shift from you to me, you're not listening. It's real, it's you. And I'm just here. You listen more often than you respond. You make eye contact a little bit. You ask a few follow-up questions, but you really hear the stories, the beneath the surface. So hearing the stories is the H. The E part of it is not empathy yet, but it's empowerment. Empowerment is much more than just support. Empowerment is active. I'm here to support you. Just let me know if how to help. Sometimes I don't know, Tatiana. I don't know what support I need. I just know I'm either struggling or doing well. I'm happy or unhappy, but maybe I'm stuck in the middle and I don't know. Encouragement may be, hey, I am looking out for other jobs for you. I am talking about you in spaces and places that you're not in right now. I'm really thinking about your best interest without you even knowing it, and then having conversations about that. But hearing the stories, empowering the flexibility of who you are, that human side, right? The A is adapting to the resources that both you and I need, but more you. Is this the shift in AI? How do I help with that? Do I weave that into our one-on-ones and our meetings? What do I need to do to help you through the transformation of the organization? Because every organization, especially right now, globally, are going through in this economy, this macro economy, are going through transformations. So how do I adapt the resources? Maybe I need to upskill myself as your leader, and I need to hold myself accountable. So that's the A part of it. The R, now we start to get into even more of the humanity, or the not the R, but the D is really to develop. So that purpose, right? And that could be around benefits, the whole person. It could be around our partnerships, driving that purpose. But really, that D doesn't come before the other pieces, right? So hearing the voices, empowering and adapting, right? And so I think if you use that framework, is really centering others, getting in the right headspace. And a good example around that is Unilever actually had done a global well-being framework pretty recently. And if anybody can search that online, Unilever. And what they did was really tie the leaders' metrics and performance around coaching to the well-being. So this reduce the reduction of stress-related absences, right? So they tied both of those things together, and that's a really great example of centering others. So it's not just a program, it's not just your metrics. You combine the two, right? Your metrics to the well-being of your employees. And I think around that is the question that we have to ask is, how are you? Pause, really. So, Tatiana, how are you
No,
really?
absolutely. It's so important to ask the questions from employees, but not just the we usually do as formal questions. How are you? I'm fine, thanks. Usually, but we need to go deeply. It's very interesting what the, now in the human-centric approach, the situation a little bit changed. Then usually we start our conversation on the formal level, and with all of us need to tell, I'm fine, thanks. I'm fine, thanks. But maybe I'm really terrible. Maybe something happened. But as you are a leader, I need to what you need to prepare the new format for starting conversation. A new format for that, especially online. It's more difficult when offline because offline you could see what's something wrong with your employees. But so we need to have more deeper conversation. But what deep conversation is also about trust. It's also about trust because I'm an employer. If I don't feel myself job secure, I don't feel myself secure when I talk about any problems in work or outside in my private life. It's another say, or sorry, I have some problems and they are impact my work, so I need time or I need help. And the trust is now I think it's one of the most important focus for all leaders. The trust for openness, the trust, but it also means on our side what the leader also should show what they are not a superman, what they are also a human. And my next questions for you: how to build this trust? What leader could do for one side to become also more human, not a superman, without less authority. So to say authority between employees. So what your opinion?
Well, you said it, and I just want to start with a practical antidote. But you said it. We are not superhumans. We're not the comic books with these super abilities. And nor should you have to be. For leadership, what I have found, and trust is different for everyone, but here's a little tangible. In one-on-ones, and it can't be done in too big of a group. So if you go more than three people in a live or virtual kind of meeting, whatever the purpose of that meeting is, it loses a little bit of substance. But if you keep it intimate, one-on-ones is perfect. What you do is you ask for feedback, but here's the way to do it is you critique something tangible. What did you think about that slide deck that was presented? And before you get the response, you give your honest opinion, not the fluff or alignment that says, oh, that was great. I'm really excited. No, you're like, I don't really agree with that. And let me tell you why, right? So you're honest about something tangible. You ask for feedback about yourself. And before you get a response as well, you critique yourself. You can say, how did you think I presented in that pitch or that deck or the update or the town hall or in that training and that workshop? And before you get a response, you say, "Oof, I missed the mark. I don't think I covered all the objectives. I think I lost them. I think I spoke too much or too little. I wasn't, loud enough to for the back audience. I think, I think I jumbled the facts and the fiction or not the fiction, but the application, and so that's another piece, right? So it's critiquing something, critiquing yourself, and then you ask for feedback, not about them. So before you humanize someone else, you humanize yourself and you say, so what feedback do you have? That three-step process. Critique something, critique yourself, ask for feedback. Because when you do that, then you're opening up that security that you're talking about and saying, okay, Frank knows that he didn't do that great. He already gave himself some critique. Well, and I promise you, this has worked for me at least for so many years where they're like, okay, and then it puts yourself in a mindset like, okay, I'm gonna get some feedback, right, wrong, or indifferent, favorable or unfavorable. I'm gonna get some feedback. And it works. And then it creates this, but you got to keep doing it. So the habits, let me back up by saying now, those habits build safety and they build trust. One of the frameworks that you can use is brave, 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 right? So breathe a little bit, have a little bit of respect, appreciate the efforts or feedback and inputs of someone else, validate, and validation is key because you have to find ways to agree and to also recognize and praise and that you approve. Those are the parts of true validation. It's not just like, oh yeah, okay, great feedback, Tatiana. Thank you. I'll try better. Like, no, what's your action plan? And that's how I actually validate your feedback and the trust. Of course, I'm always talking about work. This can also be done for your private life or personal life. Try to use both, whichever one you feel safe with. The E part of the brave is engage, right? Engage openly. Now, take this and start something, be consistent with it, champion it. So using that kind of brave methodology is a nice way to build that trust. But I started again with a kind of practical or kind of antidote. And I think one of the easiest things to take away after this is really end or start a meeting by creating a recognition for a quiet contributor. We often recognize those that are the loudest or the most seen, visibly seen in the workplace, but make it a habit of contributing or recognizing the contributors that are a little bit more quiet or need that voice, that platform for exposure. And that is humanity right there. And I'm not just saying, Tatiana, you did a great job on the presentation. No, 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 no. what exactly about that presentation, the more specific that you make it, the more value and trust you're putting into it, because that means I actually recognize you. I took the time to say it was specific how somebody in the audience or somebody in the leadership team spoke about this. You listened, you gave them options, and you had them decide. Great job. Very specific,
Mhm.
very specific, not just great job. That's so watered down and that's not very valuable. But hopefully that's quite a few things there on
Uh,
trust. And, there's just so much.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it's us the same. Usually, I make a connection between the private life and the work. For example, in the private life in your family, if you give feedback for your second part, you usually don't just only you're okay, you are great, but you say, "Wow, it's so wonderful dress. You are looking so bright today," or "You are prepared so wonderful dinner." So it's also if you're could be specific. It's very interesting. If you train yourself to be specific in every part with your children also, not just say you're a good son, but son, you made a good job. Made the wonderful picture, for example. Thanks a lot. It's very interesting color you use here. So I think if you train it in private life, you also could bring it to your professional life and vice versa. I think it impact above all sides in your life. I think it's one of the motivation to become a more human-centered because you become hippie in all parts of your life. But right, we discussed a lot about the leaders, about how leader could change themselves. Absolutely agree with this is one of the most important steps, especially when we talk about C-level leaders. But I want to ask you about the side of the organization. What company could do for motivate leaders to become more human-centered, for help them to make the steps? What a company could do for creating more people-centered atmosphere in in company. So this is uh, not just only for the leaders level, but also for HR. But they could create. For example, because I'm a leader, I could work with my employees in a human-centered way. But in companies, I could, in one side, I could find help and a lot of support. And on our side, I could have a lot of problems because nobody understands the company said, what are you doing? Why waste your time for discussing something about a private life? It's not so private. It's not in our culture. Why do you decided to smile a lot? Because now it should be serious. It's for example, in some countries, yes, it is. But for example, in Japan or in Russia, that I smile. Why I smile? What's something wrong with you? So, what company could create if for building the more people-centered culture? What is?
Yeah, that's a powerful question. And let me weave in something that you just mentioned. Yes, our personal life, asking for feedback before I get into that. You can quantify it. You can quantify any qualitative experience by putting a number to it. And that's the social science behind it. 1 through 5, a liker, one being not so great, five being great. As you develop more sensitive instruments, then you can add 1 through 7 or 1 through 10. And a good example of that is I have asked for feedback on my rice. I cook for my family. There's the personal side. I also am a cook. And I will tell you, my wife has said too much salt. So that was the kind of qualitative. And then my son, who's just going to be turning 7, said, yeah, from a scale of 1 through 5, I give it about a 3. And then I asked for feedback and said, well, what could I do to make it a 4 and 5? And he said, listen to ama, which is a slang for mom. Listen to ama. Too much salt, less salt next time. So I just want to say there's always a personal side, but organizationally, here's the theme: allow managers and leaders, positional managers and leaders, to pilot and I will explain. Because when you use the word pilot, it allows those walls to come down a little bit and say, okay, we can mess up a little bit. Because we know with pilot programs and initiatives, the expectation is that if it fails, we'll tweak it. If it fails, we'll modify it. If it fails, we'll memorialize it, maybe use it again later. If it fails, we failure is almost expected and it's woven in, and the mindset is not as harsh or inhumane, should I say. The theme around this is systems sustain change. So you have to use framework, and the framework, you see my theme, right? Always using a framework. So create the ease for the organization, but specifically those that are piloting this humanization, because don't assume that every function and every single employee and every single team understands what even humanity is. So you have to ease this, right? And the E is for enable learning, a learning environment. And that pilot program is a really good example of that. The A is aligning KPIs. So you do want to quantify even the qualitative things and ask for ideas. So what would be our measure of success in this humanization and transformation for our organization? What are our KPIs? We have to know where we're going, especially for the left brain folks of us who are only thinking in terms of numbers, right? And I think when you do that, then little bit more people start to come on board. Because the folks that that just have this right side brain that are just people connected, they're like, yes, 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 yes. Okay, sounds great. If it's in the name of people, we got it. But you're missing out on the other half of the folks on how they think. With the S part of it, it's really supporting coaches, right? So I say coaches as in terms of leaders, right? So anybody can be a coach, but specifically somebody that coaches others. You have to support them and provide those tools. And then the last piece, the E is you have to evaluate. So not only is what are our measures of success, but remember I started, this is a pilot program. So we know that it's not going to be great and we're going to need to modify it and tweak it. So let's evaluate, how do we do? And I've done this a lot of times, my friends, where I do a pre-mortem, like a kickoff, and say, what should we do? How do we navigate? What are our kind of pivot indicators? What we know, and just have a conversation at the end of a pilot, air quotes, meaning that this is a pilot. Okay, even humanization. How did it go? What did we learn? What should we do differently? What should we keep? Start, stop, continue, that piece, right? And around this is allowing the managers to choose that human side and ensuring that there's a well-being around there. A good story around this that I'll button this up by saying is, Deloitte, a global consulting organization around management, some of the organizations have partnered with them or worked for them, etc. They've also done that same thing where they've tied this bonus metrics to a thriving index. So they connect both the human and the business resource side of it, right? So you got to know the numbers. Once you quantify it, you got to know the numbers, and you have to circulate that. What are our numbers? What's our thriving and human index today? Oh, it's at a 4. Okay, how can we get to a 5? Or a 4 is what our success is. How do we keep that going? How do we keep that going? How do we massage that in? And so there's so much to be said about that as well, my friend. But I think organizations just need to start now and really dive in and just pilot it. Pilot. I promise you'll see some of the rewards and people will see the action. They're tired of the talk, right? Let's put some action to it.
Uh, Absolutely. Everything what you said is so important for me, and I absolutely agree with everything you said about all parts of creating the human-centered approach in the company. Frank, we are at the end of our podcast because the time is all the time. Yes, kind of so so quickly. My last, but my one of my last questions. Is if people are curious, also in the future, they'll start to think about changing their life, changing their organization. And what could you advise? Three main tips uh, One, two, three. Start with it. What these tips could be? Can you share?
If talking about yourself, right? If talking about yourself and getting the right mindset, correct?
You could get advice as a person to really this, or maybe for the people who are responsible for the whole organizations. Could be both.
Oh. Let me start with a question and then I'll do that one, two, three. I think you need to pause and ask, who is in this room that needs to feel seen today? And then act on it. Who is in this room that needs to feel seen today? And then act on it. But before you do that, you have to get yourself in the right mindset. Leaders have to, and this is a constant, reflect on yourself using I statements. I fill in the blank. Remove yourself just a moment and say you. Talk about yourself in the second person, you, meaning Frank. Okay, what are we going to get accomplished today? What are we going to do? How are we going to humanize? What are we going to do? Frank, right? Then put yourself once more removed and say, this is the three steps that I'm talking about. So I, you, and then a two-part removed and saying, what would Frank do? What would Tatiana do? When you remove yourself like that, you're able to analyze and critique and actually drive self-awareness. Through self-awareness is empathy. And through empathy drives so much connection in humanity. I, you, third person. That is the most practical, most easiest thing. And I promise you, if you do it consistently, multiple times a day, if you need to, multiple times a week or month, check your results. I bet you your connection and meaningful drive in humanity will absolutely increase.
Thanks a lot for this conversation. For me, it was one of the most inspiring conversation because it's full, really. What is it's really full of. From one side, it's about conception for building more people-centric leadership from a personal level, corporate level, and our side, it's full of practical advice. And full of practical advice which every person could use to their life or change in their life. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for your openness to sharing your expertise.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. And
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. This is Podcast Happy at Work. My name is Tatiana Cole and hope to see you again in our podcast.